Hi, this is Siren, and welcome back to Know How Things Work. There's been a lot of time off between episodes. I want to address that. I want to go through some updates that are happening with the channel. The big news, I moved. I want to talk to you about some of the things that are coming up in store for the series. And I want to primarily address the number one question that I'm getting these days, which is, okay, Siren, you put out this big hour-long video about what you're doing for Lyme disease a couple years back, so how are you feeling now? All of these things kind of tie in together, so let's address all those. So first of all, getting into the studio. So I have moved after 8.5 years in Orange County. My wife and I are living in Denver now. We moved to Denver. We love it here. It's great. I kind of forgot how much I like living here. However, the altitude. The altitude and Lyme disease do not mix, and we'll get more into that in a minute. So what's coming in store for the show? We have a Hyperbaric documentary. I've mentioned it in a couple of the tag on to the end of a couple of episodes before. It's a monumental undertaking. I have no idea how to make a documentary movie. I'm self-taught at all this stuff. So it's essentially in the works, and it is a big project. I'm very excited about it. I have people encouraging that I put it together in a format that could be distributed beyond my channel to places like Netflix or Prime or whatever. We'll see. For now, it's definitely something that I feel personally motivated to do because it has made such a huge difference for me. And there's nothing on the internet. There's no Hyperbaric documentary on the internet. There just isn't one. The best that I know of, there's little independent ones that were made that are one guy being interviewed for a little while here and there. The Discovery Channel did a pretty good one in the year 2002 or so, and they have all but deleted it from existence. So I feel very compelled to do a documentary on this technology, and since no one else is really doing it properly, I want to make sure that I do it right. So I'm boning up, I'm reading all my history of it, I'm getting deep into all of it, the mathematics, all of it. It's so great. It's such a great thing. So that's coming. Another episode that we have coming, I don't know how much I want to talk about this right now because it opens a Pandora's box. But essentially, I was given a book about the cure for arthritis, and it is real. It was discovered by a Merck Pharmaceuticals employee in the 1970s and promptly dropped because it was food and it was unpatentable. So I'll be talking about that in an episode. The last episodes that I did were a series of 3 episodes. It was an EMF interview, EMF/EMR, with the guru of house and home and office electromagnetic radiation remediation, Oram Miller from Los Angeles County. I also do have to mention, okay, it was my first interview. I'm getting a couple of bad comments on talking over him. In my defense, it was my first interview. I'm sure I'll get better. The second thing is, he has, my goal was to take what is normally a leisurely 6.5 to 7 hour pitch from him and distill it into 2 hours, to 2 single-hour segments. We ended up getting to 3.5 hours. My camera's all died and all that stuff, so I apologize that some of that translated onto the interview. Some people don't have the time to watch 3.5 hours down, but it's critical. This is so critical. If you're trying to get well from Lyme, this is critical. So I'm going to do what I hope I try and do best, which is take all of that information, condense it into a summary video, which also will go into things that were not covered in that video. There's a lot of other studies that have come out about its correlation with so many different issues, heart conditions, and of course with Lyme disease and cancers and things like that. But just some pretty shocking information on the source of, it turns out that it's actually not an accident that EMF is harmful. So I'll be going back into the history. Where did these frequencies come from? Where did the 2.4 gigahertz to carrier wave of pretty much all Wi-Fi of today, where did that come from? So we'll be covering all of that. And I realized as I was going through this information myself, right? So I get out of the interview with Oram Miller, and he's basically told me my cell phone is doing these things, and my Wi-Fi is doing this, my electrical fields are doing this, magnetic fields are doing this. It still took weeks and months of research to realize that this device, that your cell phone, that your Wi-Fi, that these different things that we have, these are not benign objects, right? In fact, some of you watched the EMF video on your phone and went, oh my God, this is incredible, right? Well, it's, 6 inches from your brain the whole time. And it just takes a while to realize that we are talking about these devices, the little devices, the Wi-Fi, the conveniences, that there is a big price to pay, and we better understand that. And I really hope to take you down the path that I went down, because I want to live in a world with technology. One of the first companies I started was a web-based company. So how do we live in this world and make it safe? And I'll be talking about that. I'll go into a little bit of that today too. But that video is coming as well. Got to give you a meditation update. So if you haven't watched my meditation video, I just still encourage this. This is one of the best therapies you can do. The world that we live in, we need this stuff. We need that stillness. To me, it's just huge. So I realize most people that watch this, you're not going to go start a practice, but there are a few of you that I'm talking to that are on the fence, that are just there. If you haven't watched the video, go watch it. I did that in January or so of this year. It's now the beginning of September. I have continued a meditation practice. My meditation practice at the beginning was kind of epic Olympic levels, like 3, 4, 5 hours a day or whatever. I wanted it bad, man. But now my regular practice is a little over an hour a day. And the breakthrough that I've had is I was talking about it in the video, that it would take me a good 45 minutes to an hour and a half to get to a place where I would feel this shift in my body, almost like self-hypnosis in my mind, and then in my body, the anxiety, the CNS, all the nervous system issues that were going on with Lyme, that party would just relax. All of that stuff would just relax, and I would have a very different day out of it. So a couple of the breakthroughs I've had with that are now when I do the meditation, I get to that place much, much more quickly. It doesn't take 45 minutes or an hour and a half. In fact, it was a YouTube comment from somebody that said, hey, one of my favorite methods was to count down from 300 in a meditation and use that countdown. And I find that I remember the first couple times I tried it, I was like, I don't know. It's become my go-to. I absolutely love it. I count down in my head a little bit like a therapist that is doing some kind of hypnosis. I let my own voice in my head guide me deeper and deeper as I descend down the number count. It works fantastically. Sometimes by the time I hit 0, I'm already in that space and everything's relaxed. Pretty cool. The second thing is intention. I'm using that to design my day. I set up my intentions in the meditation for the day. It's a little bit like a wish list to some degree, what I want to accomplish, my level of energy. And then I'll put some other things in there. Like I'll say, I'd like to be contacted by some people. I don't even sometimes specify that I'd like to be surprised and get connected with somebody I haven't talked to in a long time that lives in a different part of the world, blah, blah, blah. It's crazy. All I can say is you wouldn't believe me if I told you, but everything comes true. In fact, it's almost dangerous to the point where I need to learn to get more specific with the intentions. Otherwise, they're going to be too much. I literally get out of a meditation, turn the phone on, and it just erupts with messages that match perfectly the requests that I asked for, the kind of things that I set up in my intention. So still a huge champion of meditation, still doing meditation, still loving it. This I see will be for the rest of my life, no question. So we moved to Denver. You are looking at the brand new studio. I moved here in May of this year. My wife had already moved a little bit in my advance. She was needed for work out here. We love it in Colorado, and it took a few months to get this all set up, to get everything dialed back in. In fact, the goal of this is to make this even better. Hopefully, we'll have better sound, better images, that kind of stuff as the show continues forward. It's much more tuned for what I'm doing now. So I'm very excited about that. With the transition, let's use that to segue into answering the question, how is my health? Hey, Siren, you put out the big video, the hour-long video showing all the stuff. Well, how are you doing now? Well, the answer is it's complicated. In general, I'm doing good. In fact, I'm about back to where I was in Orange County, and I'll explain. So by the time I left Orange County earlier in the year, I had found a relative equilibrium with all of those things I was discussing with the hyperbaric treatments, with all of the extra elements that I was adding in, the juicing, the Bob Beck. Almost all of that I've kept going to some level, with a few exceptions. And again, I'll do a much larger video where I go very, very much through the things that have really worked. and even look back at things that have worked, things that I've changed from that first video. What is the game that... Shortly after I had made that video, I ended up in the care of a number of different doctors that were all very, very confident that they could just eliminate Lyme, and it's so easy and blah, blah, blah. So I, like all of us, I had to try some different things, and I found out two major things. Number one, things that worked 10 years ago for a practitioner to treat Lyme disease don't necessarily work anymore.
10 years, man! 10 years!
That's just the world is changing. There are 15,000 new chemical patents a day applied for worldwide, and all of those things end up in our bodies. I didn't know about the glyphosate that we need to get out. Okay, here's the question for you. Figure out, how come we have every square inch of our anatomy, of our internal body, is covered in aluminum? Where's that coming from? We'll get into all that in another episode. But it's there, and we have to get rid of that. We have to unjam the lymph, and we have to get the blood flow moving. Those orange hands and feet that I talked about, they came back when I moved to Colorado. Why? It's a circulatory issue. The bugs love to dam it up like beavers in a river. Makes it easier for them to hunt. So they jam it all up. They make it look like diabetes. They make it look like all these different blood flow and vascular and cardio issues. And it's really the same thing. They are closing off all of the circulatory system, and we have to address that. We have to get stuff moving. It's a different world. Every year it's different. Every year the bugs change. Every year there's more stuff that comes in to play. So that's one thing. And the second thing is that, thank you, by the way, I have gotten emails from all over the world, from people sharing therapies that they know that have worked for themselves or others, just sharing stuff with me. Things maybe I've heard about, maybe I haven't. I've got a document like 8 pages long of things to research and investigate that people have said work for them. But what I've found is this thing. There is nothing that works for everyone 100% of the time. And that's because if you understand Lyme, you understand that it's really, really tricky, that it involves our environment, that in fact our Wi-Fi stimulates its growth, that I was living in a hazardous magnetic field. So right after that interview with Oram, the EMF specialist, he got up and he remeasured a few things in my house and discovered, and he in fact looked right at me and said, "Siren, you cannot live here. This is a hazardous magnetic field environment that is dragging down your immune system. No matter what I was doing, that was undoing it. That was like an invisible boot heel keeping me down." I hate to say it, but we just have to be very, very diligent. When I moved from sea level to a mile high in Denver, the bugs went crazy. We all have different things to deal with. We all might live at altitude. We might live at sea level. We might have, the environment is different in everyone's house. In Denver, everybody has these Comcast routers that you cannot turn off. They are impossible. They are literally impossible to turn off. You have to throw them out. You have to buy another one at a store. But who would know that? Who would know to do that? Well, that's where, this is my point. Like, there's so many aspects to this, to getting through this. So things that had a good track record 10, 15 years ago don't work for everybody. Things that people are confident work for everybody. There's nothing that we have found that works for everyone. Not the best stuff in the world. Because of the steep decline of my health when I moved to Colorado this year, I dug into the literature. I dug into that list of all those beautiful therapies that you guys have sent me all over the world. I started calling around. I started reading books. I got into the Klinghardt Practitioner series. Like, that's been mind-blowing. And that's the biggest piece that I've realized. So the things that we're missing are, you could have the best nuclear bomb antibiotic killers. You could have the best everything. You could have the best Klinghardt cocktail. You could have all that stuff. If you don't address the environment, if you don't detox the lymph, if you don't move the blood, if you don't get that stuff out, it's like trying to treat a river that is just still. If you're trying to, clean it up downstream and upstream and it's all just not moving, it's a dead river. You have to get it flowing in order to treat the whole system. So there was definitely a lot to learn, and I did go back to the books, and I realized, okay, we gotta take heavy metals really, really seriously. In that video a couple years ago that I did, I talked about MMS. That did show results when I did the same exact provoked metals test that I did before. there was a reduction. However, we need more aggressive methods. If every inch of this stuff is covered with aluminum, if we have glyphosate in there, from the work of Dr. Omura, who did research with animal studies and found that 30 days of cilantro would actually motivate more metals than 7 years of medical chelation, including pulling it from the brain. So there are beautiful new therapies, tinctures of cilantro with chlorella binders and zeolite to bind and grab the glyphosate, grab the aluminum, pull that stuff out. So I really went back to the books. I put my bug killing stuff on hold, sans a little bit of, there's some of the therapies just happen to do a couple of things, like Hyperbarics does tend to kill any of the bugs that are anaerobic. When the oxygen hits them, they die. I maintain some of the rifing. In fact, more recently, I've moved from Doug coiling, and I have a number of Doug coils. I still want to do a comparison with those. But I realized that plasma tubes on my simple BCX Ultra broadcast 25 feet in every direction. And you can treat while you're working. So I can set that up and actually be working on the computer and treat, and the whole room is getting a treatment. And that's been really an amazing piece that I've put in now that I've built my biology up. I've done a lot of the getting rid of the negative stuff in the body, getting rid of the chemicals, getting rid of all of the inflammatory agents, the food, like I talked about. We have a great food service in California in the OCLA area. I've mentioned that a couple of times. If you need access to good food, that whole business has boomed. Feel free to contact me. We now have the same business, in fact, trained by our same amazing cook, Dave, out in California. He has trained an equivalent out here in Denver, so we're now set up. We have 2 great food services. I don't have anything to do with it other than guiding, kind of steering it to happen so that people could have this access. But we now, if you live in the greater Denver area or OCLA area, and you need good food, stuff that's going, whatever your specifications are, this is amazing. I've talked about it before. Just email me. You can go to my website. You can go to knowhowthingswork.com, scroll to the bottom, hit the contact link. That email goes directly to me, and I can send you to where you need to go. So back to the drawing board, really worked on decontaminating the body as much as possible, getting blood flow going as much as possible, getting my hands to not be orange again, which happened once I moved back to Colorado. All of that stuff that indicated blood flow issues, that indicated toxicity in the body, I've worked on. The other thing was I found out right as I was leaving California, in fact, exactly when I finished that EMF interview with Oram, he scanned my house again. And he looked at me with his scanner, and after this whole 3.5 hours of video with him, of telling all these hazards and this and that, and he looked at the thing and he said, "You cannot live in this house and get well. The magnetic fields are just out of control. It's a problem with about 90% of the homes in California. It's a level of miswiring at the city, like the city level, the municipality level. So that causes huge magnetic fields. They're practically impossible to guard against. Most of the other stuff we can kind of shield or mitigate in other ways. Magnetic fields are incredibly difficult to do that. He just told us, he said, you can't live here and ever get well." So the whole time I was living in California, many of the therapies I was doing might have taken me further, but there was this invisible boot heel that I didn't realize. So what's the lesson? I realize for some people this may sound like overwhelm, like, oh my God, I have to be more and more aware of all these things. And yes, that's true. We do have to be more and more aware of all these things. If you want to progress and get better, you do have to, and it's not taking them all on at once, but being really conscious of addressing things in our environment, things that are going into our body and in the way of food, all of that. So I found out that there was an invisible boot heel called magnetic fields, like hazardous levels of magnetic fields that were saturating our entire, not just our unit, but our entire building in Huntington Beach there. So he looked at me and said we had to move, and fortunately that was already in the works. So when we moved here, we had this place scanned, and we had EMF issues. It's Denver, so there's enormous amounts of electromagnetic radiation everywhere. There's an invisible cell tower somewhere in our neighborhood that we have to address, and Denver's a little bit like the Bay Area right now as far as real estate market goes. So it's actually more expensive to live in Denver than it was to live at the beach. So it's not like we're just going to easily move around. We have to kind of fix these things because, again, I want to live in the world. I want to live with technology, but we have to find out ways to do it safely. So I have sanctuaried our bedroom. Our bedroom is like going to a campground. We have had to do kind of a lot of stuff. We have wallpapered the bedroom with shielding wallpaper, which actually blocks out any daylight and stuff too. It's kind of great. It ends up being a really great sleep sanctuary. And then we have a canopy over the bed, and that pretty much, when you're inside the bed, makes it like a campground. There is zero electromagnetic field. There are no electric fields. There are no magnetic fields. It's a safe sanctuary. So those things have been huge to really staying on top of my health and getting better. So that's the update for now. Like I said, I'll go more involved into the things that I'm learning about, and I'll probably break them out because there's a lot that I've been learning about that has really contributed to all this. The timing, the sequencing of all these different things is important. Again, if you're not getting well, the lesson to learn is, have you dealt with your environment? Have you dealt with your detox? Metals are real. They are serious. We all have them. And again, bonus points for anybody that figures out where they're all coming from. We'll have all that information too in a future episode. We'll go into that and the solutions. For now, thank you. I hope that's a good enough update for now. Like I said, overall, doing pretty good, able to function, able to do things, but still not 100%. Still working things out. Good days, bad days. Airplane travel, I just avoid it if I can. It dramatically worsens things. And again, why is that happening? Well, we're going up into the atmosphere. It's the opposite of hyperbarics, which is the pressure as if below sea level. Airplane travel, hypobaric. This is 6,000 feet of elevation. Some of the newer planes are pressurized to 5,000 feet of elevation because people feel better. But it's still, you're up in the atmosphere. You're getting a very crappy oxygen supply, so it's hypoxic to begin with. You're in a giant metal tube with Wi-Fi blasting. All the bugs are reacting to that. You're up there with untold amounts of radiation, gamma, and all this stuff. So lots of things coming, lots of things to tell you about. For now, that's the update. Thank you so much for the subscribers, for the financial supporters of the show, people that are buying songs maybe on iTunes. All the music in the background is mine. It's a great way to support the show. Some people are doing little PayPal, $1 a month, $2 a month kind of donations. Thank you so much. And I look forward to more episodes very soon now that we have the studio set up and everything else. So that's it for now. I'm Siren. Know how things work. Have a great day.